Welcome to Bucs Insider Live, presented by Ticketmaster. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith. We were going to come to you at our normal time, and then the dang team had to supplant us with their press conferences.
They ended practice early.
Yeah,
which I guess the players were probably
They were probably okay with it. We were probably the only people upset about it.
But we're here now.
We're here now, and this is our first time doing back the normal type of show. We had been doing it all training camp. We even went up to New Jersey for joint practices. Now we are back in sort of the regular season form. Air conditioning, big fans of that. So now we have some pretty big news to talk about since our last show. Very handy for them to make this announcement just for us, I'm sure.
It was Tuesday morning.
Yep, so we now know QB1, Baker Mayfield. If you hadn't heard, I imagine everyone's heard. Tell me the thoughts on this announcement.
The funny thing about it was, how often in a coach's career does he have the opportunity to name a starting quarterback from a QB competition? It doesn't happen that often, and you would have thought maybe there'd be a little more gravity to it. And I was just like, Baker's the one, Kyle's the two.
So nonchalant.
It was about 10 words, period.
And but I think it was even kind of like not a direct question even about that. It was like
the question actually was staged as, I know you're not close to naming a starting quarterback, but what? And he's like, Baker's the one.
Baker's the one.
So that reporter did a good job.
Todd probably enjoyed getting to do it that way. I think that's very much his personality and vibe.
And I know, and I saw before, heard beforehand and after the announcement that there are plenty of people out there that thought this was a foregone conclusion when we signed Baker Mayfield, that this competition wasn't a real competition. And I got to tell you, that is not the case. This was a real competition. Kyle Trask did very well. Coach says he has improved by leaps and bounds, which makes you feel good about your depth because you want that whole room to be strong. But he said Baker Mayfield really just had a little bit better grasp on the offense, and he also has done well. So Baker earned it. He said what you would think he would say in his press conference. He's like, I expected to start, which is what you want, right? So, but still, he also understands that these opportunities mean a lot. And today, when we weren't allowed to do our show on time because the coaches and players were being so rude, Dave Canales said that that Baker, he can tell, he can feel, or I think he said he can sense how seriously Baker is taking this opportunity and how Baker understands the weight of this situation. And so this is a big deal for him, obviously, to get his career back on track. Former first overall pick, had a great year in 2020, led the Browns to the playoffs. And he obviously had some injuries after that, obviously wants to get back to that form. And, this is actually the second time in a row that the Buccaneers have solved their quarterback situation by signing a veteran free agent, Tom Brady.
I was going to say, I think we've heard of the other one.
Hopefully this one goes as well as that one. That would be pretty amazing if it did. But that's really not all that common, actually, in Bucs history. This is just the 6th time in the entire Bucs history that the Bucs have signed a veteran quarterback and named him the Week 1 starter that same year.
That's incredible.
It just doesn't happen that often. The first one was actually Brad Johnson in 01. And that year went well, and then they won the Super Bowl next year. And then Jeff Garcia in 07, and that year also went well. And then the others were Byron Leftwich and Josh McCown, and those weren't particularly good seasons. And then Tom Brady.
Wow, that's so interesting. And so what do you think is going to be some of the things that Baker will bring to this offense, or the ways they want to use him specifically? Yeah,
and they talked a lot during this competition about how Baker and Kyle were both doing well, but they were not the exact same sort of quarterbacks. And while Kyle actually moved around pretty well, that's one of the real strong tools in Baker Mayfield's toolbox, that he can make throws on the run, he can make throws off platform. And one thing that he did really, really well in that 2020 season that we talked about, and if you want more details on this, there's a really good story on Buccaneers.com from Brianna Dix.
I was really hoping you were going to be like, from Scott Smith.
Yeah, from Mr. Smith.
Really brilliant story.
No, my colleague Brianna, who did all the research and even talked to Thad Lewis, the quarterback's coach, and got these stats from SIS. And this was in 2020. He was the only quarterback in the entire league who threw, on bootleg plays, threw 11 or more passes that went 20 yards in the air downfield.
Wow.
So this isn't just fake a handoff bootleg this way and throw a little check down to the tight end. This is getting the ball downfield on bootlegs, which is, I mean, he had the best numbers in the league on that play. And what's surprising about it is most coaches don't take right-handed quarterbacks and bootleg them out to the left. They'll have them fake the run to the left on the zone, get all the defense moving in that direction, and then spin back around to the right side. But actually, Baker was really, really good. He did 6 times, was 5 of 6 for just really good stats on bootlegs to the left. So this is the kind of thing, we haven't seen this obviously in the preseason because they don't want to show anything yet. But I think that's an aspect of the offense that obviously Tom Brady was the GOAT, but they weren't running bootlegs with him.
Right, yeah.
So
it was not bootleg Brady.
No, so it's going to be interesting, I think.
Okay, and then one of his top targets, I think, that is going to be interesting to watch, Trey Palmer. This guy we keep having to talk about him, draft pick, but not a super high draft pick,
right.
But he is playing like one. He is playing like a guy that is going to make a case to be on the field a lot in preseason and seems like he'd be a great complement to guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
Yeah, and you're right. He was a 6th-round draft pick, and the Bucs were surprised he was still on the board because he's really, really fast, and he's got good size, and he had great production last year. And usually those 3 things together will get you drafted a little higher. The Bucs, he's still on the board, so they already had 2 6th-round picks they wanted to use for something else, so they traded a 5th-round pick next year just to get the pick in order to be able to take Trey Palmer. And he obviously has done great. 2 really nice, acrobatic touchdown catches. And the thing about it is there's an opportunity for him there because Russell Gage, unfortunately, is out for the season, and I don't know how that's all going to work because I don't know if he's a slot guy or not, and I think they wanted to use Russell.
Not necessarily a one-for-one swap.
Yeah, exactly. But I still think he's done enough to warrant a prominent role when you talk about the fact that you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then behind that, you don't really have a lot of experienced guys. And there's some really talented guys there, but you don't know yet. So I think there's a really good opportunity for Trey to have, a prominent role of some kind. It's hard to say what at this point. Maybe Chris Godwin goes in the slot and he plays outside in trips. But as you see here, he's one of only 4 players that have 2 touchdown passes, and I think I messed up this graphic because that last player there should be for the Browns, but still.
I was going to say, I'm like, dang, Ravens just.
But the other 2 are Ravens, and they're very young players, and that means 3 of the 4 players that have 2 touchdown catches this preseason will be on the field here on Saturday night. And
speaking of Saturday night, first of all, I love that they've now gone to just the 1 cut down. So all your preseason games, you have the chance to watch anyone and everyone on the team, and I think it elevates the stakes for all of it, knowing that you still have all the different roster positions, potentially up for grabs, not only starting roles, backup roles, all of that. And one that we've talked a lot about this offseason and preseason is the idea of the slot corner position, what that's going to look like in the nickel. And a guy, Delaney, that has been with the team for a while, hasn't necessarily been one of the more household names, but has really kind of made a name for himself this preseason as a guy trying to make a case for that spot or the roster in general and different corner areas.
Well, not only has Delaney sort of made a name for himself here, but I think I made up a nickname for him.
Oh boy.
Yeah, because what the coaches always talk about and what's really stood out about him and why he's found a home here the last 2 years after bouncing around a little bit is they love his versatility, and he has actually played in the regular season at 3 different spots: slot corner, outside corner, and safety, and he's played a significant number of snaps. Look at this. In 1 year he played 190 snaps at outside corner and a little bit in the slot. Then last year he played a lot in the slot and a decent amount at safety, and so that's 3 different positions. So I called him 3D.
I like that. That's pretty good.
We actually had him on our Salty Dogs podcast yesterday, and I threw out that nickname, asked him if he liked it, and he played along.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't care, but he played along. So I'm going to try to make it stick.
Yeah.
But Delaney really has, to me, there's nobody other than the starters. Nobody's really a lock, but I would have a hard time seeing him not make this roster just because of how much he brings. And he's also really, really good on special teams, and he's been playing a lot of gunner, and so that's a very important position. So he just brings so much to the team, and you're right, he's not a household name and we don't talk about him a lot. That's kind of why I wanted to bring him up.
That's going to be interesting. All right, and then we'll close with this. Just top things you're kind of excited to watch in the preseason game on Saturday.
So earlier today, Cam Gill was talking at the podium, and he pointed out that all of the outside linebackers are going to play. Like Shaq and Joe are going to start. They're all going to play. And we have heard from Coach Bowles on numerous occasions during training camp in the preseason that this is going to be the hardest position for them to cut down just because there's so much talent there from top to bottom, including young guys, 2 draft picks in Jose Ramirez and Yaya Diaby, and also an undrafted rookie that they're liking a lot in Marquise Watts. So there's, like I said, talent from top to bottom. I think there's maybe 9 of them, and they probably would keep 5, I would think, at the most. And so Cam himself was saying, Cam Gill, who had 1.5 sacks in the first game, he was saying he's really looking forward to seeing all of those guys play, and so am I. I want to see who really stands out from that group.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on Bucs Insider Live. Thanks, as always, for joining us. Enjoy that final preseason game, and we'll be back here next week to talk about the roster cutdowns. We're going to know who is on the team by the next time we do the show, so we'll see you then.